you don't have to live in someone else's box. Like if you look up to someone and you have this role model and they train really hard and you want to take that, you don't have to take the other pieces too.
Welcome to the Ninjababes podcast. We are back with another episode, and today we are back actually with Sara Heesen. Just in case you're wondering, am I talking about Sara Heesen, like Sarah Beeston Heesen? Well, yes, I am, but her actual last name is pronounced Sara Heesen, like raisin. And this is actually a new fact to me that I thought I'd make sure I'd share with everyone right from the get-go. Sara was on the Ninjababes podcast. I want to say it was about last year sometime. We were talking a lot about injury, getting through different struggles with injury. She's had Lyme disease and collarbone, right? You've broke your collarbone. We've both had a lot of injuries, and Sara has had her fair share and probably maybe even worse ones than mine. So not to make light of that, but our last episode, if you want to scroll all the way back down in the episode list, we were talking a lot about recovery from injury and what it's like to get through that, what it's like to deal with depression and to deal with those low points of getting through injury. But today, Sara is back with us. And just to put it into perspective, Sara has competed on American Ninja Warrior seasons 9 and 10. She is a strong, amazing ninja who I love spending time with and I love learning from and training with. I've been able to have the privilege of getting out there to Obstacle Academy in Minnesota to train with the crew over there. And Sara is one of the coaches at Obstacle Academy. And she always just encourages me with her determination. I'm always inspired by her determination and her hard work ethic and her encouragement. And she's just a blast to hang out with. Before we dive into this episode, I wanted to tell you about an important partner of Ninjababes. Propello Life is an all-natural wellness and nutrition company that Ninjababes has worked with for well over a year. I love working with this company because they're family-owned. All of their products are all-natural, non-GMO, and not only do they taste great, but I feel great taking them. If you've ever taken pre-workout before and you feel like you've gotten hit by a truck or your heart is going to explode, their products are not like that. Their products are all natural. They'll give you that natural boost of energy if you're taking the Energy and Focus blend. If you take the pre-workout, you will feel that hype, but it's not the same as some of those other chemical-based companies that will leave you with dry mouth, cause you to overly sweat, and all these other weird side effects. So if you're looking for a company that has great all-natural products, they even have vegan and whey proteins, definitely check out Propello Life. Best of all, if you go over to propellolife.com and use code NINJABABES, all caps, you'll get 10% off your order and free shipping, and you'll be supporting the Ninjababes podcast. So if you're looking for a way to get amazing products that taste great and that supplement your nutrition and a way to support the Ninjababes, head on over to propellolife.com and use code NINJABABES on your order, and you won't be sorry. Thanks for your support, and thank you for trying out Propello Life. So, Sara, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me on again. I love hanging out with you too. What an intro. This is the best.
What an intro. Yes. So you're a coach at Obstacle Academy. I know you've competed in UNAA and NNL. How do we know you from the ninja world, just to give our listeners more of a picture of who you are?
I think you did a pretty good job. I've been on the show a couple times. I was on Ninja versus Ninja. I actually broke my sternum on that show, so you might have seen that on live TV. And then I do a lot of competitions, but it's funny, we were just talking about this before we started recording. A lot of people don't see me there or know, because I tend to regroup and kind of hide away from the crowd to get ready for my time to compete. So I kind of hide away before I compete a little bit.
Yeah, it was funny. I was like, wait, I know you competed in Minneapolis, but I was there and I don't remember seeing you there. I was backstage with the ninja crew, and she was like, yeah, I was probably hiding. It's well, that introvert status, right, is you need to be away.
I love hanging out with people, but I get really nervous right before competition. So I do much better when I can take some time and take some space. And that's actually something I've had to teach to a couple of the kiddos, because there's a couple kiddos that are like that on the team too. And I'm like, it's okay to just tell people you need a little bit of space before you compete.
Totally. Yeah, it's important to definitely know what you need and just do it. I totally get that, because sometimes
Yeah.
I've been in those situations where like you're at an NNL or some sort of local competition. It's like everyone's like hanging out, and you're like, yeah, but I'm feeling nervous, and I feel like I can't just sit here hanging out. I need to like clear my brain. So it's
Yeah.
good to know what you need.
Yeah.
Well, today we are diving into our topic of role models, and also how do you learn from your role models in such a way that you're able to build up your own confidence and self-esteem. And this is a topic that I think is so important, and it can be very helpful. But if you take role models in the wrong light, it can almost just be detrimental in the sense that you're setting up your expectations so high for that person, and you almost can put them in like this untouchable category. And you're like elevating them to such a place that it can be bad if something goes wrong in that person's life, or if they disappoint you somehow. It can really throw your world like off kilter, and you'll feel that devastation of disappointment. But role models can be such a great tool in our lives to help us understand different goals that we have when we see something in someone else's life that we look up to, that we're like, wow, they do that so well, and I really want to do that in my own life, or I want to see that skill in who I am. And so role models can be a great encouragement. They can be a great like pointing direction of a goal that you're heading towards, or just something that you've never seen before. And we were talking about this last night on the phone, Sarah, but I really mean it. I really do look up to your determination and your strong work ethic and how hard you work. And, we're about the same age, but it doesn't matter. Like in that sense, like I do look up to you in that way. And, I think sometimes we say role model and you think, oh, it's a child looking up to an adult. But I think there's ways that, we can represent those role model characteristics to one another without having to necessarily put that label on it. But that's what it is. Like, I'm looking up to you.
Thank you. Feelings are mutual. So this is the best. Because you've built, Ninjababes, you've built this from the ground up, and now it's every time I go online, it's like, oh, it's one of the top podcasts, and oh, this is who you're interviewing. I think it's the coolest thing. So I look up to you too.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Well, so I want to jump in this topic because I know that you have just a heart for encouraging and inspiring the next generation and just talking about stuff like this. So can you look back to a time when you definitely had a clear role model in your life, or just someone that you look up to, whether it's now or when you were younger?
Yes. When I was younger, my biggest role model was Xena, Warrior Princess. Do you remember that show at all?
Yes, of course.
Okay. That was when I was younger, so I definitely wanted to be just like her. She was this strong, she's just this strong, badass lady who fought for what was right, and she had characteristics of like typical characters, but I hadn't seen someone that strong and powerful be a woman when I was younger. So it really played a big role for him. Like, whoa, like she can do all this amazing stuff. I actually had pictures of her on my wall, but not like, posters, which would be appropriate. I took magazines and just did black and white prints of them and put those on my wall as a kid growing up.
Wait, you didn't just put like the magazine photo on the wall? No,
that would make more sense, Kara. Okay. I wanted to save the magazine for reading for a later time, which I never did. So I made photocopies and put the pictures on the wall.
Wow.
Yeah. She was a huge impact for me. I found out that that whole series was filmed in New Zealand, and it inspired my trip there. So it played a pretty big role for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Fun fact, Jessie Graff has actually had the same exact role model. I talked to her about this. Are you serious? Yeah.
Yes!
That was one of the ones she named for sure. Yeah, we did a live stream where we were talking about the same topic, I guess a week or two ago. And it's on the Ninjababes Instagram on the IGTVs if anybody wants to look. But yeah, she definitely gave the same example for the same reason. Well, some of the same reasons. She was also talking about just like that sense of helping other people and like fighting, being a badass, like fighting for other people as well. And like how she wanted to be that hero for other people.
Yeah. That makes me so happy. Yeah, she's the best. Xena and Jessie. Did you have any growing up? Like, did you have any, I don't know, fans, role models when you were really young that you can remember?
Yeah. So I always really looked up to models. I was really into fashion and modeling, especially growing up into high school. And so the British model Cara Delevingne, how I still don't know which is the correct way to pronounce her last name, but I always looked up to her because she had this style and this sense of self that was so like unique and just like I'm Cara, I'm gonna be who I want to be, and we have the same name spelled the same way, so
That's
obviously
awesome.
that added a lot to it. But she just had this personality that always came through her the way that she used fashion and the way she portrayed herself as a model was always just so I'm going to do what I want to do, like a little bit of like bad girl, like I'm going to break the rules and like whatever, but she's super cool. And she's modeling from everything from like Burberry to like, like, I don't know, everything and everything you can imagine, like every designer like under the sun. I felt like she was in ads everywhere. So
That's
I
awesome.
really just, yeah, I just admired her uniqueness and the way that she creatively just was herself. And I think that that's something I always wanted to emulate. Was I just want to be who I am in a way that is inspiring and creative. I've been involved with a lot of art and fashion, like before Ninja. That's what I was mostly focused on. And so, yeah, I just loved that about her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So one thing is like when we have these role models, it's like, are we trying to be that person or copy and emulate everything that that person is? Did you find that with Xena?
Yeah, well, I think it's normal when you're a kid, right? So I think it's normal when you're a kid and you find someone that you really like that you want to be that person. Um, and it starts with Halloween costumes. You dress like them, and then you want to act like them. And I think um, that's normal. That's not a bad thing, and that's why parents are so protective of who the role models of their kiddos are, and that makes sense. But it should shift when you get older. And I found myself the older I get, is I tend to take bits and pieces from people. So there's people who I really admire the way they train, but maybe I don't really like another part of their life, and that's fine. Like they're a person on their own journey, um, growing and learning, and maybe their goals and wants in life are different than mine. So then I take what's applicable for my life and try to apply it, and that served me really well. So I follow. I have different friends that I admire for different reasons, whether it's their work ethic or just how much they um, value their family and friends, or effective communication is a big one for me. I'm so fascinated by people who can effectively communicate because uh, it's been kind of a struggle for me my whole life. So kind of taking those bits and pieces and applying it to my life, that's how I have role models now. And I don't have someone where every piece of their life makes sense to incorporate into mine anymore. And I think that's normal.
Yeah. No, I would echo that. I think it's important to have that shift where I think when you're younger, it can seem like you see what's happening on the surface or the outside of that person's life and everything seems perfect or everything just seems like, yeah, like they look so cool. They can do this thing. Like they're great at ninja or like whatever it is. And you're like, oh, they must be exactly who I want to be. But I guess the danger of that
Yeah,
as a kid is like, yeah, I mean, it's normal to want to just copy that and be like, yes, dress up as them as Halloween, like everything. But um, it's like the reality is you can never just grow up to be a replica of that person, or you can never like 100% like replicate what you're seeing someone else do. I mean, you can learn those same skills. You can, you know, try in a lot of different ways to dress like them, to act like them. But it's important to like realize what it is about that person that you like and the skill sets that you like, or, you know, the things that they do that you like. But how can you apply that to your own life? Because you have a unique personality, you have a unique self. And you could miss out on the great unique characteristics about you if you're always just trying to completely copy somebody else. And
100%
so,
agree. Yeah, it's
yeah.
disrespectful to who you are if you try to copy someone else.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that as you get older, you kind of realize that, or at least hopefully realize that. And kind of like into your teen or college years or early 20s or whatever. I feel like that's when people really maybe begin to appreciate the unique aspects of who they are and become more comfortable with them. But yeah, definitely for any kids or teens listening, I would want to encourage you to, look up to who you see as like your role model, or who you see as someone you really want to be like, and that you admire, but figure out why it is that you like that. Maybe you love the way they dress, or you love their skills, their ninja skills, or you love just the way they're so friendly and they make you feel so good. Like, realize what those are and learn how you can kind of apply those characteristics to your own life. So growing up, I always loved one of the leaders at my church. She how do I put it? She just always made me feel so welcomed. And I think she just had such a skill in hospitality, but she always remembered things about my life and remembered what I would tell her a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And she would ask me about it, and she would make me feel included and welcomed. And she really cared about my life. And that was something that I was never going to be her, especially as I don't know, a 13-year-old. I couldn't just become this older person. But I realized that, wow, the way that she remembers aspects of my life makes me feel so important. And I always wanted to try to do my best to be that way with my friends, and to remember what's going on in their lives and remember what's important to them and what's happening. And so it's taking on that skill set and that characteristic and learning how to adapt it into the skills that I already have, but not necessarily just trying to copy everything about that other person. I think one thing that's important is as you get older, and then you realize that there's not necessarily one person that you should completely try to be like, and you realize the characteristics and the skills that you have. It's the more that you can practice them and grow in confidence in your own self, the more that you will value those things. Because I think sometimes, we can look up to other people and feel oh, but I'm never going to be as good as so-and-so, or they do this so well and I just want to be like that. But it's that disconnect of, well, how can I ever be like that? And so just learning in your own life, how can you build in confidence of the skills that you do have and practice those things and talk to other people and learn how did they get so good at doing this specific ninja thing, or how whatever it is, fill in the blank, just how did they get there, and being able to talk about it and then practice it in your own life in a way that you slowly build up the confidence as you get there.
Yeah, I think that's a really great mentality to have with role models. And I heard there's someone talking about, I wish I could remember who it was, but they had such a unique take on role models. And they said, you take the pieces of the role model that you like and incorporate it into your own life, because at the end of the day, you want to be your own role model. And I thought that was such a loving way to view it, instead of approaching it from kind of a jealous or envious standpoint, to be at the end of the day, I want to be proud of who I am, and I want to be my own role model. So I want to make sure that I'm living a life that's true to that. And that kind of struck me, and I really liked that.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. I love that. That's so true. And it kind of reminds me of what Jesse Graff says is be your own hero. I think just that point of, how can I live a life that I am proud of and that does inspire other people and does lift each other up, but it's something that I can look in my own life and, like you said, realize, wow, I can be my own role model because I'm so proud of who I am and the way that I'm living.
I think there's something else to touch on too, whether you're someone else's role model or you have a role model in your own life. There's going to be expectations for how to live, and people are going to try to put that on you. And sometimes, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. But I think it's good to acknowledge that you don't have to live in someone else's box. If you look up to someone and you have this role model and they train really hard and you want to take that, you don't have to take the other pieces too. And I think from, I've talked to some ninjas that have gotten pretty popular. I'm sure you've talked to so many people at this point, Kara, but they get so much pressure from the people who look up to them to behave in a certain way, and you don't have to take on that baggage. And I think that's an important distinction to make. I've heard people have gotten talked to about their political views or how they choose to dress or how they choose to speak and communicate, because they say that's not how you should dress if you're a role model, or that's not how you should talk if you're a role model. And I think there's a lot of pressure there that you don't have to take that on. Does that make sense? Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean, and I think sometimes it's tough if you are a role model that, like, let's just say Ninja Warrior, for example, right? So if you are a ninja that a lot of kids or just young people look up to, and parents kind of expect you to be this family friendly, like, someone that their kids can constantly be watching and like know that it's always something that the parents want them to be looking at. That is a pressure, but at the same time, like, are we signing up for that as Ninja Warriors? Like, maybe not. But I think that that is the presumed expectation for a lot of the ninjas that get very famous or are big name ninjas, is that what they see on the show is going to be what they see on their Instagram, right? So if on the
Right.
show it's a family friendly like show, then your Instagram should also be quote unquote family friendly. So is that kind of the pressure that you're alluding to?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, especially, I've just talked to some women who it's like, oh, you wear too much makeup, or oh, you shouldn't post political views. Like, we only want to see Ninja. But it's, you know, it's a whole person.
Right.
you don't
Yeah.
you don't get to, you know, dictate how they live their life because you really admire a certain part of them. And I think
Mhm.
I, I I disagree that you don't have to take that on and you're not signing up for that. I think there's an obligation to be authentic and consistent, um, with your message, but I don't think you have to be the same as you're portrayed on the show, because it's, you know, they take a piece of you, highlight that piece of you. That doesn't need to be all of who you are.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think it's true. Yeah, especially with Ninja Warrior, they are really focusing on one piece of your story. But for those of us who've been on the show and then we're trying to live our regular lives as well, it's like, yeah, I'm not always that one piece of my story. Like, there's a whole part of us. But I think that's part of the skill set for people who are, how do I want to say this? I think it's part of the skill set of becoming self aware, is realizing also, like, all right, well, if I live my day to day life and then on Instagram I'm posting about this specific aspect of my life, well, I know that there's a lot more to my life than what I'm showing. So, then it'd be safe to assume that it's the same for other people. If they're only posting if I'm only seeing what they post, there must be other things going on as well. And so I think
Right.
that's like a healthy realization to have. But like you're saying, it can get very challenging when then ninjas or whoever are having the pressure of, oh, well, you always need to portray this very specific thing that is what we have come to learn about you and look up to you for. But I think when, especially for kids or young people, to realize that, like, okay, there is more to it. So I might not always get this one flavor of this person. And I can even say for myself, like, I'm getting married in 2 weeks, and this summer has
Yeah.
has yay, yes, I'm very excited. But this summer has been like a roller coaster of having so much to do. I mean, we had uh, a relatively short engagement just because we wanted to be able to get married and set everything like squared away before winter comes back in case COVID gets bad again. We just wanted everything to be done like well before the holidays. And we're excited, and then we're not having like a crazy huge wedding, so it's easy. It's like happening. I'm basically done planning now, which is like very exciting. But the point of this is that typically I always post everything ninja, everything that's like going on in life related to athletics and ninja. My injuries, whatever, recovery, all that stuff. But when I got engaged, I posted that I got engaged, but then I had this weird feeling of like, over the summer, I have not been ninja training as much because I've been focusing on planning my wedding, moving, getting ready for marriage, like all of these important things that are about to happen in my life. And I felt a little guilty for being like, I don't have time to go shoot ninja videos. And I felt guilty about that. And I felt like, well, can I not post anything because it's not going to be about Ninja, or should I just post about what's actually going on in my life right now? And so I honestly did have that moment of like, oh, I don't know how to portray myself right now. And that's like a weird place to be, because it's like, well, my real life, what's happening is honestly all about my marriage and my wedding right now. But like, do the people want to see that? Should I care what they want to see? Should I just post about my normal life? Or is my Instagram only supposed to be about my Ninja Warrior journey?
Did you get any pushback? Just out of curiosity, did you get people like, post more ninja videos? I don't want to hear about your wedding. Did you get any of that?
No, I didn't actually. But
Good.
it was mostly an internal like, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And a lot of my friends or people who communicate with me regularly on Instagram, there's been people being like, oh, where are you? Like, you're not at the gym, or like, come train with us. Kind of like, friendly invite, not like, what are you doing?
Right.
But just like, where are you? And so I've definitely told a lot of my closer friends that like, yeah, it's really busy right now. And it's like too much to try to train regularly and do all this other stuff. But I did have a lot of people when A&W 12 started airing, like, oh, I started seeing commercials, like, when should I expect to see you? And that was a totally different conversation. But that was like, oh yeah, I was cast for season 12 and you saw me post about it months ago, but then they recast for season 12 and now I'm not in it. And so, that whole story about COVID happening and then the numbers for competing being like shrunk down very small. And so that was kind of a weird moment for me too, being like, well, are you not going to look up to me anymore because I didn't compete on season 12? Like those thoughts have crossed my mind. And so it's like that real life experience of like, people see you in a certain way, but life is constantly changing and evolving and
Right.
developing. And so it's like, what do you, if I'm not competing on season 12, does that make me less of a role model? Does that make me less of someone to look up to? And I think that would be a very unfair thing to say, like, oh yeah, you're not as important anymore. I mean, it's like, it's pigeonholing people in such a way that like, oh, unless you do this one thing, then you're devalued in my mind. And I think that that's kind of like part of this conversation.
I think that happens though. I don't think it should happen, but I think that happens. So I think if you do get pushed to the top, that's something to prepare yourself for. And if you do look at someone, I think you need to be cognizant not to do that. Well, I guess in my own life, the two things that I get pushback, well, a few things I get pushback for is cursing, how I dress, and then talking about depression. So there's a lot of people that say because kids do look up to me that I shouldn't curse. Now, I'm not going to curse in front of kids, but when I'm just around adults, cursing's my favorite, okay? So I'm not going to give that up. It's how I communicate. To me, that's how I authentically communicate, and I think I don't want to stop. And then there's people that say there are times that I dress inappropriately, and I don't think that's true. Because I'll train in a sports bra, and there's people that want me to be an example of being a modest female, and I'm like, no, like I'm training. I'm in a sports bra. I'm proud of how strong I am. It's hot, whatever. But you're going to get feedback and pushback from that. Have you experienced any of that?
Wow, that's really interesting. Actually, I guess I've experienced it in different ways, but to touch on the sports bra thing for a moment, are you finding that like at the gym or just on social media, like from people not near you?
It hasn't been a lot, but it's been a little bit. There's families that are more conservative with dress and they're more modest, and I think that's great. And then they want me to fit into that bubble, and
Sure.
so they'll comment on it. And that was one of my own struggles. Is like, well, like, should I do that? Is what I'm doing not okay? And then I looked at it. I'm like, no, I'm fine with this. I'm not trying to go out there and like my goal is not to be this sexy person on an obstacle. Like I'm training. I'm in a sports bra. It's summer.
Right. No, I hear you.
But I know that I've talked with other women, and especially women who do their hair and makeup get pushback from that too, and I don't think that's fair.
No, I mean, I don't think it's fair either. I mean, it's when it comes to the sports bra thing, like there is that question of, am I being respectful to someone who this makes uncomfortable. But then to me, it's more of a question of, um, yeah, it's not inappropriate dress for the setting of being in a gym and working out, especially when it's hot. Like that's not inappropriate. But for someone who finds that like a question of modesty, then it's more so like they're trying to push their specific morals or values on you and telling you that you should be adapting it.
Right.
Um, but to me, the question comes in of is like, when is it a crossing a boundary of respect to somebody else? So in this case, like I don't know, I kind of feel like it's hard to say like what's respectful or what's not, being that you still match the setting, like you still match the environment that you're in. You're not just like walking into somebody's store or like walking into somebody else's home, just like, that would be a different type of a scenario, but you're in a gym where it's accepted and like normal to work out in a sports bra unless your gym has a rule.
Right.
The other thing about sports bras is like where I typically train, usually the guys don't wear shirts and the girls just wear sports bras. Like it's, I don't know, it's warm and that's just, unless it's cold out, like that's typically what just always
Yeah.
happens. And I also often train at a gymnastics gym where all the girls are wearing leotards and the guys are not wearing shirts. And so for me to just wear my sports bra and like my tights or whatever is completely normal. And like everyone in the entire gym is doing it. So I do feel like it depends on like the environment of your gym, but it's that question of respect. Like, is there like a reason that I feel like I should be following that this is crossing some boundary of appropriate respect?
Right. That makes sense too.
But the other thing is like with makeup and things like that, it's like then we're just getting into like stereotypes of, well, who's to say that I should or shouldn't be wearing makeup or dressing in such a way that I want to present myself when I'm competing or when I'm on the course. It's like, yeah, that's so hard because I feel like on one hand, there's a stereotype of, oh, girls are gonna doll up and like want to look a certain way to feel pretty, whereas or girls are athletes who are girls shouldn't be wearing makeup because you're not that kind of a girl. You're an athlete, so you shouldn't be. And then it's like this weird, dichotomous like stereotype of what women should look like as an athlete.
People are always going to have an opinion on what women should look like. That's going to be everywhere. Just so you know.
Just so you know.
Everyone's going to have an opinion on that. They've done so many. Well, there's this news station. It was one of my favorite segments because it was a male and female who would lead the news in the morning. And this guy wore the same outfit for a month straight. He got zero comments about it. And then his female co-star would get daily comments about what she wore and if they liked it, if it was appropriate, like what her body looked like in it. And she got a comment once like, well, you already wore that once. Like, why are you re-wearing that outfit? And the guy was trying to make a point like, no one judges you based on what you wear as a male, but you get judged quite a bit as a female based on your appearance. And I think you get to make those choices on your own, and you get to mute the voices that are telling you what to do. I think it's so cool when people doll up to go compete. I think it's so cool when people look like they rolled out of bed to go compete. It's like whatever suits you, go for it.
Yeah, I respect that, and I think that it's true. Like people should be free to, I don't know, feel comfortable expressing themselves how they want to, and not feel like they're going to get told it's wrong or right just out of a preference, like how you dress or how you are putting on makeup or not putting on makeup, or braiding your hair and not braiding your, a ponytail versus like I made some sick braids. Like Charity always has those amazing braids going on.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. But yeah, I mean, I feel like especially I would love to encourage the girls and the women just to know like you don't have to look a certain way to like be a ninja female. I mean, I sell merchandise, right? And so of course I like sell shirts and I want everyone to like buy my merchandise. But it's like, if you don't wear Ninjababe stuff, you're still a Ninjababe in my mind. Like you're still that female athlete out there who I want to support and encourage the best that I can. Like there's no like stereotype of what a ninja girl should look like, at least in my brain. And I wouldn't want people to try to like follow after that.
I agree. There shouldn't be, but there's a lot of pressure as
Yeah.
a young girl. Um, guys get based on, for the most part, guys are judged by what their body can do. Women are judged by what their body looks like while they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But you
it's
don't have to
true.
live up to that.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Is that it's true. It does exist, and it is something that I feel like you realize more and more as you get older. Um, but one thing I want to ask is we're talking about all these pressures and stereotypes and like role models and like what you can look up to, what you shouldn't care about, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like our conversation is kind of like gone all over. But like, what is the takeaway of like how do all these opinions and all these things impact our self-worth or our confidence, and how can we continue to preserve our own confidence in a world where we do face all of these opinions every day?
Well, you get to create the life you want. You get to develop yourself to be the person you want. And I think there's people around you that can help you get there. So I think it's important to be intentional. Be intentional with who you want to be, and who your role models are to get there. So looking at the people around you and be like, oh, I look up to them, but then really diving deep, like, why do I really look up to them, and being honest about those answers. And then inserting them in your life where it makes sense to do so. Role models could be people it could be people you don't know. Role models could be dead. That's why reading is so important. You can take the best from everywhere and kind of mosaic the life you want. Um, and I think when you approach that with a kindness to yourself, instead of beating yourself up for not already having those attributes, and kind of treat it like Easter morning to see how many eggs you can get in your basket, like how much can I improve myself in the ways I want to improve, I think that builds self-worth, and that helps you grow as a person.
Yeah, I think what you said is so important of, just especially not beating yourself up for not being that version of yourself currently. But being able to realize, like, yes, what you said, like, what am I aiming for? Like, who do I want to be? Like, envisioning the version of yourself that you want to grow into and you want to become. And then realizing, like, who has, from the array of people around you, like who has those different attributes, and kind of pulling them off the shelf from different places, and realizing how to look up to those people's skill sets, and then how you can develop them in your own person. So yeah, I echo that. And I think the other thing I'd want to add is, like, it's okay to like want something, and then you start to learn about, whether it's a sport or, a different hobby or whatever. You start to learn about different things, and then realize that you liked that for a while and now it's changing and you like something different. Or even just skill sets within yourself. Like, I think when you value someone's hard work, right? For example, you might apply that to ninja now because you're in ninja. But then maybe a few years from now, you're not necessarily competing like you were before, or you're focusing on something new, but you can still bring that skill set of hard work to the next thing that you're involved with. And you realize how that shapes your life in that way. And so I think it's also important to realize that these skill sets that you grow as you emulate your role models, and as you see the things about these other people that you like, those skill sets are going to be a part of your life. So it's not just a part of what you're doing now, but it can be a part of that tapestry of who you are as a person. And that's beautiful, because then it's something that sticks with you for your whole life, and you'll be able to look back and realize all these different activities that you were involved with and the people that you looked up to, but how all of those experiences really shaped the person that you are.
I love that.
Oh, thank you. Is there anything else that you'd want to share before we close up, whether it's like advice to other girls or anything else on this topic?
Just really honing in on the fact that you get to create the person and the life that you want to live. So be intentional with that. Don't let that happen by accident, and actively work towards the life you want, and the skill sets you want to emulate in your own life.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes,
Sarah,
thanks for having me.
yeah, it's been so good having you. Sarah, if people do want to find out more about your life and they want to follow you on Instagram, where would they find you?
At Beast and Heesen is my Instagram, and Beast and Heesen on Facebook as well.
Sweet. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Kara. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay,
Be
go for it.
strong, be you, be a ninja babe. Is that right?
That's right.